Hey everybody, I'm going to talk today about how we rate AI use in articles. We rate news content for reliability and bias, and we have a lot of reasons why stuff is good, at the top of the chart, okay in the middle of the chart, not so good, a little bit below that, and then quite bad at the bottom. So as AI has become more of a popular tool, for lots of use cases. It's been used in creating news articles, or at least assisting to create news articles. And it's not like anything, it's not all good or all bad. And there's definitely gradients. So when we come across that, like it's not in every article. There's lots of articles that are just have nothing to do with AI. And so that doesn't factor into our rating of those at all. But for more and more, it's used in some way. So we had to come up with a taxonomy for how we deal with that. So I'm going to show you that taxonomy, and then I'm going to walk through an example of an article that does use AI and show you how to like, some of the things we look for. All right. Okay. So this is our AI rating rubric. It's a lot of words on there, so I'm going to walk you through it. Don't worry. Don't try to like read all the words on here. Just stay with me. At the top of the green box in our system, 36 to 64, that's generally good. So, I mean, that's a big range, but 36 and above, we're saying this is reliable for lots of reasons. And then below that, there's a yellow box, which is 24 to 36. That can include opinion, analysis, other issues. And so there's with AI, there's like this middle section as well. And then there's the orange section, which is problematic. So for other reliability reasons, there's lots of reasons things could be problematic. It's very detailed. And then 16 and below, that's our red section. 8 to 16 is pretty bad. 0 to 8, really, really bad, the worst. So there's reasons AI wise why they fall in all these buckets. So let's talk about why. So it's like anything, not all good, not all bad. We have to just take it case by case. So you can you can use AI. Newsrooms can use AI. We're specific on the things that we'd like to see and what would make us rate it as good. So the 36 to 64 range for disclosed use of generative AI. So if they disclose it and it's used for things like topic selection, initial outlines, suggesting alternative language for final drafts, generating translations, text to audio, or summaries, with a human doing the final editing before publication, and contains no AI generated mistakes. Note one thing that we put in here is that it's if the article itself is written by AI, that's not going to fall above 36. It's going to be 35 or below. That's because of a lot of reasons, but we value the human created content, like with human effort, more than we value the effort, which is inherently less when you're using AI to create something. If you do write an article with generative AI, a lot of folks are like, well, what's wrong with that? If it's true. Again, we value the human effort more for a number of reasons. So AI content that is fully fact-checked and edited before publication, the higher up the disclosure on the page, the better. It contains no AI-generated mistakes, AI-generated summaries. Oh, sorry, this is semicolons. So this is one reason, like it can be 24 to 35 in general for generative AI content that's fully fact-checked and edited before publication. Also, it contains no AI-generated mistakes. We really ding stuff that's made of generative AI that does have AI generated mistakes. That's automatically going to go below 23 into our problematic area or worse. So we're saying it's okay if it's totally true, it's totally fact checked, and it was written by generative AI. It can be in this like 24 to 35, like this okay section. We're just not going to give it like a yes, this is good journalism. Uh, we're not going to give it that score. All right. So you can have AI generated summaries like up here. You can have you can use it for summaries like bullet points news outlets do that. But if you have AI generated summaries, whether they're disclosed or undisclosed, that are confusing, irrelevant, or awkwardly worded, that's also going to put it in this OK section. Like, okay, they only use it for a bullet point, but the bullet points are like a human would never write something like that. So we have this area right here. The lowest end of the OK section is 24 to 25. Again, we have this like good, okay, not good, bad. In the lowest end of the OK section, 24 to 25, is if you've got some evidence of undisclosed AI generation, but it's inconclusive. So the problem with undisclosed AI generation is that they don't tell you, and you have to look for clues to determine whether it probably is or probably isn't. And you're going to have various levels of confidence on whether it was AI generated or not. So if you're like, gosh, I think this is generated by AI, but I can't say for sure, then we still put it at 24 to 25. Why? Because if the writing is so bad or so iffy that you don't think a human wrote it, it's not good writing. So it's gonna go, it can be okay, but it's gonna be on the lower end of okay. All right, let's go down to a problematic section. Dis 23 or below for disclose generative AI, but the disclosure is not on the article page, not even as a hyperlink. So they might bury it in the about section. You have to dig for like information about the authors, and they're like, oh, maybe generative AI helps us sometimes. So we have a range 16 to 23, and it says for a preponderance of evidence of undisclosed generative AI. Okay, I'll lawyerly here. Preponderance of evidence. I'm going to refer to standards of proof that are used in legal settings. So, a preponderance of evidence standard means it's more likely than not, like even just a little bit more likely than not. So, in cases where money is at stake, where like different parties are suing each other for money, in a civil case, there's often a preponderance of evidence standard. Like, who's more liable? Probably this one. More than that one. And they can like make monetary awards based on just a preponderance of evidence. That's not like very, very, very certain, but it's like enough to like make a decision. And that's okay in cases where money's involved rather than cases where like people's freedom and lives are involved. Okay. So if you think it's more likely than not that this is undisclosed generative AI, it's going to go into 16 to 23. Problematic. If it looks like it's likely not fact-checked or edited before publication, like you can see, like if you see minor mistakes like this, it contains minor grammar AI generated mistakes, including AI images. And that can be like the messed up writing on an AI image or something like it shows a picture of uh, it's not purporting to show the scene, but it's got like a generic kind of AI image that has got some sort of flaw in there. All right, below that, not good, is 18 to 15, 8 to 15. That score is for clear and convincing evidence of undisclosed generative AI. So, a preponderance of evidence, you're like more likely than not, you say you're 51% sure. Clear and convincing is like maybe like 70, 80, 85% sure. Lawyers don't really like when you use actual percentages. You can't use that in like jury instructions, but that's like how people conceptualize it. Like you're pretty sure. What's a clear and convincing evidence of undisclosed generative AI? Well, for example, a prompt or a response to a prompt in the text. Oof. Like if at the beginning of the article it says, "Write me an article that explains blah blah blah." That would be pretty clear and convincing. This has happened. Sometimes people are so lazy about the use of generative AI, which is already lazy, to write something that they just copy and paste the whole thing. They don't even bother to edit out the prompt. Or at the end, it's ChatGPT tries to be all helpful, and it's like, would you like me to create a visualization based on what we just wrote? So sometimes you'll see that in the text. Um, so 8 to 15 for clear and convincing evidence or beyond a reasonable doubt. So beyond a reasonable doubt is a standard of proof in most cases with like serious crimes, and that's more like you're 95% plus sure. Okay, so it's clearly not fact checked or edited. before publication. It contains plagiarized content that AI has reworded, or contains misleading AI generated mistakes, including AI images. For example, I came across an article that was supposed to be about like Saudi Arabia and referred to Saudi Arabian princes, and it had photos of like a green flag with like squiggly lines on it in the sand, and it said, Saudi Arabia's flag. And I was like, it kind of looks like Saudi Arabia's flag, but I don't think it is. So I Googled the actual image of Saudi Arabia's flag. It was just a bunch of like squiggly lines in the green. It was not Saudi Arabia's flag. They also had pictures of like a crown prince. It was supposed to be like the crown prince Mohammed bin Salman. And I was like, that looks like a prince, a Saudi prince, but and not him. It looked all glossy and stuff. Sure enough, it was not him, but they just like put a picture like it was. That's misleading. Okay, so this seems pretty bad, right? There's stuff that's worse. So the worst stuff is that it's below 7, 0 to 7, for the same evidence level listed in the 8 to 15 range, so clear and convincing or beyond a reasonable doubt, but the source further lies to you. Like the source asserts human authorship or contains plagiarized AI content that has AI reworded and is under another person's byline. We have seen this. Like we will see like AI rewritten content. You can tell that it came from a article from The Guardian or the New York Times or something, and then they just copied big chunks of that text, reworded some of it, and then they put somebody else's name, maybe not even a real person's name, on it. Oof. All right, so 0 to 4 for AI generated content that's inaccurate. So like it's just false. Like just like the most false stuff goes down here. Okay. So let me show you an example. Sometimes this content comes from news sources that you're not super familiar with. Sometimes it does come from news sources that you're familiar with. And this gets really tricky because uh, the stuff at the top in this area, most reputable newsrooms are experimenting with this kind of stuff. Most of them have like some decent policies and have like thought about this and are rolling it out carefully, but a lot are not being super careful about it and have gotten caught. So let me give you an example and we can figure out like where we would put this in our AI rating rubric. So let's go to this article. It's a little bit older article. It's from September of last year from Newsmax. So Newsmax is a well-known publication. And it's we're not going to talk about bias or anything today. That's not really like relevant to this particular conversation. But we want to talk about like there's really strong evidence, I'd say beyond a reasonable doubt here, maybe clear and convincing, that this is undisclosed generative AI. This article. So I'll show you why, and I'll show you what things you would look for. So there's no disclosure that this is generative AI. I'm going to go through it line by line. Like, why did we think this is generative AI? So this is the title, Russia escalates confrontation with NATO, incursions growing. This embedded video, these are actually just video players often play videos from like current news. So even though this is an old article, you'll see current video, and they're just like, ignore that. But this is by Newsmax Wires, Sunday, 20 September 2025. So the fact that there's no byline on this from a publication that has reporters, like they definitely have reporters that can write this. That's clue number one you want to look for. In both well-known outlets and non-well-known outlets. Not having a byline is like a big red flag. Let's see. Okay. Russia's war in Ukraine has entered into a new and alarming phase, with direct confrontations spilling over into NATO territory. Over the weekend, Russian drones struck into Poland, and a separate incursion into Estonian airspace prompted an emergency NATO briefing. Okay, so there's nothing inherent, like if you don't know much about what happened, in September, if you're like reading this at the time, uh, there's nothing like a big red flag that would inherently make you suspect. Like there's no prompt or anything in here that this is generative AI. But something made one of our analysts think like over the weekend, because they had read about this story and they're like, I remember a story from last week about this, but over the weekend this happened again. So this is the on Sunday, September 21st. Turns out that there was an incursion September 9th through 10th. There's a Russian drone incursion into Poland, but it said it just happened like this past weekend. So, all right, that's a little suspect, but maybe it's a slight error. Let's just keep going. Coupled with intensifying missile and drone barrages against Ukrainian cities, the move signaled that Russian President Vladimir Putin has largely abandoned diplomatic overtures made by President Donald Trump and others, escalating confrontation with the West instead. On Saturday night, Polish officials reported that a Russian drone crossed into Polish airspace and detonated near a village close to Ukrainian border. Okay, they really are saying like this. This was published on Sunday. They're saying on Saturday, like the night before. It did not happen the night before, so that's an error. But also, this reminded our analysts of like something else they had heard of, that there was so if you look at this, the details of this Russian drone incursion, it says up to 4 drones were confirmed to have been shot down. Uh, so shot down. Here it says um, Polish officials reported the Russian drone crossed into Polish airspace and detonated near a village close to the Ukrainian border. Well, there was a similar thing, but that happened the month before in August 20th. So a drone crashed into, like, or detonated. That seems to be the incident they're referring to. But then, so it looks like this might have just the facts just gotten, have been mashed together. Like the timeline has been mashed together. Uh, Sorry, I missed one thing. I want to go back. It says over the weekend, Russian drones struck into Poland. Struck into Poland is like a weird way to say what drones did, right? Like drones might strike a place or they might fly into a place. So like drone struck Poland or a drone struck a city in Poland or drones flew into Poland would be like correct words, but drone struck into Poland, that's weird phrasing. The kind that a word machine that just mashes likely words together might make. Okay, so let's see. All right, so it says, well, it matched the whole timeline together. Let's look for other stuff. While no casualties were reported, the strike was interpreted as a deliberate provocation. NATO condemned the attack as, quote, reckless and destabilizing, while Warsaw put its air defenses on heightened alert. At this point, it's a lot to go and check every little thing, so I'm just going to keep reading, see if I see anything else. Only hours later, Estonian authorities confirmed that Russian military aircraft entered its airspace without authorization. According to the Estonian Ministry of Defense, NATO jets scrambled from a Baltic airbase to escort the Russian planes back across the border. Okay, that seems to be what actually happened this weekend of September 20th, is that Russian aircraft flew over Estonian airspace. So not Poland, mind you. So Estonia is like a different country. So you have Estonia up here, like there's Russia next to it. Poland is like over here, and then Ukraine is over here. So it seems like in August, a drone like crashed into Poland near Ukraine, and then at a separate time, on the 9th through 10th, drones flew from Russia into Poland. They were shot down, like 4 of them. And then on September 20th, um, Russian aircraft, like 3 of them, flew over Estonia and like NATO planes intercepted them. So you got like 3 events mashed together here. So lots of errors so far. The incident triggered an emergency meeting of NATO ambassadors in Brussels, with the alliance reaffirming its commitment to defend all member states under Article 5. All right, so we could check more details on that stuff, but we've already got a lot of evidence so far. Strikes have targeted Kyiv, Odessa, and Kharkiv, killing civilians and crippling energy infrastructure as winter approaches. Western intelligence officials say the pattern suggests Moscow is shifting strategy, moving from a defensive operations in Ukraine to a more aggressive campaign meant to intimidate NATO. Would you call the actions in Moscow and Ukraine defensive? I don't know. That seems inaccurate. But Trump has made repeated efforts in recent weeks to broker a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. From public statements at the White House to back-channel communications via European partners, Trump has urged Putin to halt strikes and consider a peace framework. However, the attacks in Poland and Estonia show that Putin might not be interested in compromise. Instead, the Kremlin appears intent on testing NATO's red lines. In remarks following the incidents, Trump warned Russia that continued aggression against NATO members, quote, will be met with the strongest possible response. Trump said that? All right, what else did Trump say here? He went further in a recent interview, suggesting that Putin's provocations could push the world toward a third world war if unchecked. Quote, we are closer now to global conflict than at any time since the Cold War, Trump said, promising that the U.S. will defend every inch of NATO territory. Okay, Trump has not been like super well known for saying strong stuff in defense of NATO. Um, Certainly recently, but like also back in September. So it's kind of important to know like when did he say that? That would be kind of a big deal if he said that because it would be a bit of a departure from other things that he personally has said. So the other big red flag here is that none of these quotes are linked to any other story. In fact, in this entire story, there are no hyperlinks to any other underlying articles and reporting. Most like news articles from major publications, not even like reputable publications, major publications, most of them have some hyperlinks, and this one has none. So if you want to look for quotes, like did somebody actually say that? Google the actual quote with quotation marks. So let's Google this one. We'll defend every inch of NATO territory. Let's find instances of Trump saying this recently. Okay, let's like not look at the AI summary because, that's led us astray so far already. So let's just look at actual news articles. Well, the US says it will defend every inch of NATO territory, and there's some examples of like Joe Biden saying that and US Ambassador Mike Waltz. Okay, so it looks like he said that he will defend every. All right, so Whitaker, Waltz, who else said this? Um, let's look at that NBC article. All right. Trump said that Thursday's alleged drone incursion into Poland could have been a mistake. That's what he said. But his acting U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Dorothy Shea, appeared to try to reassure Washington's NATO allies on Friday following Trump's remarks. So he like didn't say that. He was like, maybe it's an accident. Violating the airspace of an ally, is what Dorothy this is what Dorothy Shea said. Intentionally or otherwise, showed immense disrespect for good faith U.S. efforts to bring an end to this conflict. The United States stands by our NATO allies in the face of these alarming airspace violations, and rest assured, we will defend every inch of NATO territory. Okay. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Gosh, it's got to be hard for generative AI that there's like a Donald Tusk and a Donald Trump in the world at the same time. But all right, said it was the quote the closest we have been to open conflict since World War II. So that's also in this article. So it looks like generative AI just like mashed up these quotes together. They said, we are closer to global conflict than at any time since the Cold War, Trump said, promising that the US will defend every inch of NATO territory. So we just have a totally made up Trump quote in here. All right, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said, condemned the Polish drone strike and Estonian air incursion as dangerous escalations and pledged that NATO would reinforce its eastern flank. Already, and additional air defense units from Germany and the U.S. are being deployed to Poland, while Britain has committed surveillance aircraft to the Baltics. European leaders are voicing growing alarm. And we've got more quotes in here, but like wake up call, that's kind of a small quote. Let's it's hard to, there's lots of instances of people saying wake up call. Estonian President Alar Karis said Russia's airspace violation demonstrated that, quote, Moscow is willing to gamble with NATO security to try to intimidate us. No link here. Also, we couldn't find this quote. So it's a big red flag when you like Google an actual quote and you cannot find it because Google is pretty good about like bringing up all the instances of that quote. All right. For example, French President Emmanuel Macron noted that, quote, Europe cannot allow Russia to normalize attacks on NATO soil. All right, well, that sounds like a thing he would say for sure. But let's see, like, did he say it? Let's look for this actual quote. Okay. It's only this Newsmax article where you can find this quote. Like, Google is literally like, I got nothing else for you except this one instance of that. So not that's good evidence that he actually didn't say that. Again, no links to the quote. I probably skipped over some stuff in here that if you are knowledgeable about this issue, you might be like, ah, that thing was wrong too. That thing was wrong too. So again, this would be very difficult to detect if you knew nothing about these stories, didn't spend like an hour digging through and trying to Google individual quotes, find similar things that did happen. So the best signs that you would have as a uh, as a citizen who is like reading something just quickly is no byline, um, the no hyperlinks to any of the quotes, and looking out for things like weirdly worded things like drone struck into Poland, and a really surprising thing that you, based on your world knowledge, you don't think would have happened. Like, it would have been very surprising if Trump had said that, and that wasn't like the biggest, most important part of this story. All right, so some easier clues, some harder clues. Where would we put this on our rubric? Well, I think we've got clear and convincing, I think beyond a reasonable doubt, evidence of undisclosed generative AI, not fact-checked or edited before publication, contains plagiarized content that AI has rewarded. Maybe we don't think so. Misleading AI generated mistakes, for sure. So, AI generated content that is inaccurate. I think that's the biggest thing here is it just made up a Trump quote that he didn't say. So it's going to go in the 0 to 4 range. So bottom of the list. So, uh, it's a tough thing. There's AI used out there, and just be wary. Thanks all.